What's up, my nerd dizzles? It's your main man, Choppadong, and I am coming at you with Week 14 NFL Rundown. We're going to do quarterbacks and probably running backs in this first video, and then we'll come back and we'll do wide receivers, tight ends, STDs as I call them, and then we'll come back and we'll do a little fantasy point per dollar and ownership projection, and then we'll come back and we'll do a little domination station setup maybe, and then we'll come back and do a little geek comparison cheat sheet video. So that's like 5 or 6 15-minute videos that are coming your way this week, like we've been doing since about week 5. These have been a big hit. I thank you guys all for liking and subscribing to the video and to the channel and everything else, so that you get these bad boys when they drop to your phone immediately, because that's what we're trying to do, is get this content out early in the week to give you plenty of time to digest it, think about it, talk about it with yourself and all the voices in your head, and then start seeing where the coaches are going to go. We try to get ahead of the curve because that lets us know if we're maybe on track with our research or maybe we're missing a few things. So, bottom line, let's dive in and let's talk Week 14 quarterbacks and running backs. And we use the NFL research station at DFSArmy.com to do it. We go into the quarterback tab, and you know what? Let's do this first. Every week lately, we've been having this little glitchy little issue where that flashes and doesn't. So you hit this little dude here, you pop it out into that full-size workbook, and out he pops, right? Click off the evening games. Hold the control key down, go click, click, and now we're set. We've got the main slate. Maybe it's not exactly perfect. Maybe there's a team on there that shouldn't be. I don't know. If they've got all this COVID Tuesday game, Thursday game stuff, who the hell knows? But what I know is what I'm looking at right now is the quarterback tab for what should be 99% of the main slate. And I'm looking for home teams, I'm looking for favored teams, and I'm looking for implied to score a lot of points. Why? Those historically lead to value. Those historically pay off their shot. Now, I will tell you this. On DraftKings, there is a mark. I don't remember exactly what it is. Maybe it's 8,000 or so. You generally look to pay down at quarterback on DraftKings because of the 300-yard bonus and all this other sort of stuff, that if you can find that guy, that lower-priced guy, in a good, safe matchup, he's generally a little bit smarter to play than the guy, the higher-priced guy, because he hits value, he hits a better multiplier than he does, you know, at the higher salary, at the higher price point. Now, over on FanDuel, you pretty much pay for what you get, kind of like the one-pitcher, two-pitcher thing in baseball, in that over on DraftKings with two pitchers, you kind of got it. You don't really take the top pitcher very often because he's just too damned expensive, and it forces you to punt a little bit lower in your lineup for what you get. Now, over on FanDuel, you only get one pitcher, so generally you're paying up. Same with quarterback. Generally, we're paying up. Now, that doesn't mean we're paying to the top. We still want value. We still want to be able to pay off that salary. And it is harder to do so at that higher price point. No, Dalvin Cook, I'm talking to you. Derrick Henry, I'm talking to you. But the bottom line is, even in the quarterback slot, it's harder to pay off that salary. So we kind of try to stay under about 8,500 where we can. We haven't really had the opportunity this year to do it. But that's generally the idea. And if you've got other running back value, wide receiver value, tight end value, things like that that you can take, yeah, you can come all the way up. And it doesn't hurt you quite as bad, because those guys up there in that $9,000 range that you're looking at right now, wondering when I'm going to actually get to the breakdown, those guys are generally the guys that are going to hit the 30, 35-point ceilings. Not always, but they're going to hit it more often than Ryan Tannehill, Matt Ryan, whatnot, because that's why those guys are priced a little bit cheaper. I'll remind you of one thing that we said last week as well. When you're staying just under that stud pricing tier, you've got room for upside. You've got the room to really blow the doors off the sucker when the guy has a great game. When he plays way up at that $9,000 mark or $10,000 at running back, he has to have a great game to pay off that to barely pay off that salary. And that makes a ginormous difference in your building, especially when you're looking at kind of the safer cash type plays first. We're just looking for the best of the best. These are cash type plays. We may not use them in cash games because there may be better, more important value elsewhere, but these are generally going to be the guys you can bank on, that you can fall back on, and then let the rest of the week with the coaches and whatnot kind of pan out from there. Have these guys in your head, written down on your sheet or whatever. Learn how to find them. And then if you get into a pinch, you can take these guys and you're not going too wrong. Okay? Let the coaches give you the fancier plays and whatever else. But we're going to cover a lot here in the next week. So tune in. I'm glad you're doing it. Let's dive into the running backs and the quarterbacks. When I said I'm looking for home favored implied to score a lot of points, quarterbacks. The reason why is because they generally have game script going their way, and when they're supposed to score a lot of points, there's a lot of tutties to throw for out there, and that's what these quarterbacks typically do. So I can take the spread or the team total or whatever I want, and I can sort it in ascending order. That brings all of the negative dudes to the top. That's your big favorites, and these guys are all in play. So are these guys. Over about 24 points is a threshold, but over highest I can get, the better. Yeah, I understand game script in a 13.5-point game is maybe going to lead to the running back, but who's the running back in Seattle? If Chris Carson's still hobbled or hurt or whatever, who's the running back? Frank Gore? That's not him. That's in New York. I get him and Carlos Hyde mixed up all the time. Why? Because they're both old as dirt. You aren't going to end up with much out of those guys. They don't have much of a ceiling. They're not going to be like LeGarrette Blount late in the game or even Derrick Henry late in the game where you just hand the ball off and say, see ya, we're going to go check out and catch the bus. You got to keep throwing in a lot of these cases on a lot of these teams. Aaron Rodgers certainly throwing a lot this year. Russell Wilson's been slumping lately. How safe is he? Yeah, he's home. He's favored. He's implied to score a lot of points. But how safe is he right now? We just showed you in the research lab in an earlier video on this channel that if you scroll back up and find it, you'll see that he's been up and down, a lot of down lately. Aaron Rodgers has been very, very consistent. This is our leader in the clubhouse. So even though he's on the road, at 9,100, this is our leader in the clubhouse, and we're looking for a way to make sense of coming off of this salary. Okay, so let's start digging down here a little bit more. Taysom Hill, sure. Does he make sense? I'd have to look at his production, but 7,700, that's a, $1,400 savings. That speaks. As long as Philly gives up points to the quarterback, Taysom Hill maybe is throwing a little bit better, looks okay in the mid-range, whatever. If he starts giving it to Alvin Kamara a little bit more often, he's got a running floor, rushing TD floor. Now, I will say this, if he didn't rush for a couple of TDs one of those past 2 weeks, he would have had a pretty bad game. But I haven't looked at Taysom Hill because it hasn't made a lot of sense to me lately. But, because I've had other guys up here that I like better. And Patrick Mahomes would be one of them. He's going to throw. Ryan Tannehill, not so much. Tom Brady, not so much. Where did Herbert? Justin Herbert came all the way down here. Why? Implied team points, I'm assuming. But at 7,900, outside of last week, you'd be really, he's an underdog too. So that doesn't lead too well to hitting that value at 8,300. But you look at his game logs, and outside of last week where Belichick is screwing with a rookie quarterback, you're hard-pressed to find a guy with, I guess, a more inconsistent floor than Justin Herbert. He's been very consistent all year long. I'm definitely going to look his way. Will I choose him over others? I don't know yet. I'm just saying he's on the list. Russell Wilson on the list. Aaron Rodgers on the list. Taysom Hill probably on the list. Patrick Mahomes on the list. Tom Brady, honestly, on the list. Home, favored, implied to score points. Brady spreads the ball around. He's got a floor. He has a floor. Yeah, he's been a little inconsistent. You can talk about the Bruce Arians thing and all that kind of controversy and whatnot, and that is all true. And it brings questions. We don't like question marks for cash games. Tournament, great play. But he might be an all-format play based on what the rest of the slate gives us. Teddy Bridgewater, no. Nick Mullins, Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray, if he didn't get that shoulder squared away, probably not. Facing the Giants, they're a pretty legit defense. Kyler Murray, we need to see how running quarterbacks maybe do against the New York Giants. Matt Ryan, no. Phillip Rivers, no. Deshaun Watson, I don't know. I'm getting down. I'm looking at Aaron Rodgers and looking for reasons to come off of him. Maybe Taysom Hill is one. Maybe Justin Herbert's one. Mahomes could be one. Tom Brady might be one. And really, I don't need to do a lot more research than that. Those are my entry-level guys. So when I go to the running backs, I'm looking for very, very similar situations. I'm going to click off those evening games again, and I'm looking for home, favored, heavily favored. Why? Positive game script. Implied to score a lot of points. Lots of touchdowns, lots of fantasy points to go around. So again, I'm coming over here. I'm going to not necessarily sort that by implied points or spread like I did for quarterbacks, because what I'm also more concerned with at running back is volume. I'm not concerned with volume at quarterback. I'm concerned more with efficiency at quarterback, but I'm concerned with volume at running back. So if I take these guys and I sort these guys rushing attempts per game in descending order, I bring the good dudes to the top, right? I'm looking for targets per game as well to give me some kind of passing game work. That increases my floor. It gets my guy more touches. And I come over here and I might even look at the red zone rushing attempts. Look at these, how many times they've touched the ball inside the 20. Inside the 5 is a big number here. So if we came down even into this range here, Aaron Jones and above. It doesn't mean these guys are off the list just yet, but it means these are the guys home favored, implied to score a lot of points, touching the ball a ton, catching the ball some, and getting a lot of their team's carries inside the 5. These are the dudes you're looking for. So I come over here and I say Dalvin Cook, of course, but Dalvin Cook's on the road this week, and Dalvin Cook isn't even favored this week. Bad game script. That's a big price tag to pay for that. Bad game script. Derrick Henry on the road. Jacksonville, though, sucks against running backs. 29th in the league. Good matchup for Derrick Henry to get right after coming off of a dud last week. He's not at home, but he's got the softest matchup on the slate pretty much. Christian McCaffrey, if he's back, is in a pretty good spot, home and favored and implied to score some points, touches the ball all the time. We all know that. Josh Jacobs, James Robinson touches the ball an awful lot. $8,000 there. Ezekiel Elliott, no. Kenyon Drake's interesting right now. He's on the road, but he's interesting right now. They hand the ball to him more on the 5 right now than they do to Kyler Murray, even because of that shoulder maybe. Myles Gaskin's another one at 6,000. So we got a couple of guys here that might end up being possibilities. Aaron Jones, don't like him in cash. He's in a committee. David Montgomery, I know he smashed last week. I don't like the guy ever. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Melvin Gordon, Ronald Jones, Jonathan Taylor, Ahmed, whatever. There's not a ton of value down in this range. There's not a ton of at least awesome picks, because the further we go down the list outside of maybe a Eckler or a Kamara, we're getting down to where we're not touching the ball a lot per game. So if I'm looking at these guys here, I would say I do like Henry this week, honestly. Robinson would be okay. Gaskin might be all right. I would look into Drake a little bit deeper. Make sure he's getting the touches. And Ronald Jones, if the game script favors him, is great, but he's been up and down. We saw him earlier. And then you look at the other guys down here. Miles Sanders I'd look into, but I don't trust the workload that he's been getting. I don't trust that coach. Kamara, probably not with Taysom Hill until he starts throwing the ball to him more, which we'd have to look in the research lab and look for the trending tool. The last week, did he get some targets? Are they starting to force that ball to him? Force Taysom Hill to throw the ball to Kamara and get him involved? Eckler's another one that I do like. Pass catching backs against Atlanta, dude, still a thing. So those are just generally your list of your guys that you're going to want to watch. And I come down here again, I'm looking at these guys over 15, 16 touches, preferably up here in the 20s. That's a good thing. I look at the opponents and I see Jacksonville. I see James Robinson against Tennessee's not stopping the run right now. Kenyon Drake against the Giants, not stopping the run right now. Myles Gaskin against Kansas City, not a terrible matchup because usually people have to throw, so they're not as concerned with stopping the run. Aaron Jones, David Montgomery, softer matchups. David Montgomery, another soft matchup, man. I just don't think the guy has – he hit a ceiling, blew right through it last week. But generally speaking, I don't like the way that offense operates with him. He doesn't seem to have that extra gear unless he's in a very, very soft matchup. But you can't argue he's not in a soft matchup this week, so maybe he's somebody that everyone goes back to the well on. Melvin Gordon, interesting against Carolina. Splitting time with Phillip Lindsay, though, of course. Jonathan Taylor, I don't know. I would say Derrick Henry for me, James Robinson, again, Kenyon Drake, Myles Gaskin, maybe. Probably skip David Montgomery, but he's in the back of my mind. Melvin Gordon's in the back of my mind. And then, of course, Austin Eckler, maybe an outside shot at Miles Sanders. Those would be the guys I'm kind of concerned about this week that I want to hear our coaches start mentioning their names. As they start to mention their names, I know that if they're generally going to be in good positions and getting the touches and getting the carries, that if the ownership levels come up on these guys, I'm in a solid spot. Same with those quarterbacks. Of those 5 or 6 names, somebody's going to rise to the top, and those are going to be the guys we're going to key on. Gets a little bit more wide open. We talk wide receivers, tight ends, and defenses and whatnot. So let's come back and let's do that in a little bit, and we'll give you a few things to think about this evening as we head into tomorrow night's Thursday slate and prepping a little bit more for the weekend as the Domination Station loads and all of our matchup charts and all of our tools load at dfsarmy.com. So come on in and join us. This has been Chop It On with your Week 14 rundown, quarterbacks and running backs, and we'll see you in a little while.